There's this feeling. It kind of feels like anxiety or nervousness or fear, and it's the kind that sits right in the pit of your stomach, especially when you're about to press the word post or publish, right when you're about to show the vulnerabilities of yourself to the world. It's the feeling of, will this be good enough? Will people like it? Will it be well received, or will I get torn apart? Is it good enough? Am I good enough? I've been a full-time creative for coming up to 15 years now across many, many different creative disciplines. And let me tell you, I've been through this journey so many times, and every single time I go and start something new, these feelings, these thoughts, they surface again and they emerge again. You see, this feeling comes from comparison of yourself and your work to other people, comparison of other people to other people, comparison of who you are now to who you were before, or potentially who you want to be in the future. And I think that comparison gets a really bad rap for being self-destructive, especially nowadays. Nowadays we are constantly bombarded with platitudes like don't compare yourself to others, or focus on yourself, or comparison is the thief of joy. And while these sayings, these inward-facing sayings may be true and may be quite sage advice at times, that doesn't necessarily make them true all the time, every time. See, humans are fantastic at comparison, and there's an art to it that can be learned. But when we're told to think about comparison in one way, a very individualistic way, mind you, then part of that comparison skill, the other part of that comparison skill, goes unused. And over the course of my career, when I've come across people who have imposter syndrome, or they feel like they're shy to share their work, or they feel like they're not good enough, oftentimes they're not using a portion of comparison that is super useful for building up self-confidence, for building up self-esteem, and helping them break through those barriers. In every creative field, in every skill-based endeavor, actually, there's a standard. There's an average. There's a watermark to which the industry typically sits. People are typically this good at something, and for you to ever succeed, to truly succeed at that thing, you need to be at least that good as a minimum. At some point in your life, you'll come across a person, whether that's a friend or a family member or something like that, and they'll bring something to you that they've made. Let's say it is a drawing, right? And they'll be really pumped up and excited and all that kind of stuff, and they'll say to you, hey, I spent 20 hours drawing this thing. Isn't it amazing? Don't you think people will love it? Do you reckon I could sell it, make money off it, make a business out of it? And of course, you as a polite friend and an encouraging person would be like, yeah, it's amazing. Try your hand at selling it and see what happens. But deep down inside, especially if you have experience with that industry, that the standard of that is up here, right? Really, really high. But what you're looking at might be down here or here and not quite hit that mark, right? It's this difference, this delta, right, between the standard and the skill level that is really important to know. To be able to sit down and to assess and to identify what those two things are, and to really know what the standard truly is, right? To know what skills are required, to know how many hours are put in to that particular craft, how to define and refine your taste, because that's a very difficult thing to teach. All of that stuff. Knowing the standard is very important, because if there's a gap, right, then you know what to aim for. You know that you need to start building skills in a particular area, or that you need to start understanding what good taste looks like, right? And as you make your thousands of mini steps up towards that line, you'll eventually start to gain more confidence through repetition. You'll eventually start to build your self-esteem, right, in that area, in that industry, until you eventually make it to that watermark and beyond. But then people get stuck. Ego and insecurities get involved. In the case of ego, there are some people who think they are far better than they actually objectively are at a certain craft, and they get wrapped up in the hype of themselves, and they never truly progress past a certain point because they think they know it all. right? They have too much self-confidence, they have too much self-esteem, and that's then evidenced in the level of success they end up having, which ultimately is a lot lower than what they feel that they deserve. In the case of insecurities, there are some people who feel like they're not enough. They feel like they don't belong, or they have imposter syndrome, even if their work is to the standard or even above. What they do is they end up robbing themselves of the praise and the joy that comes from their journey, and therefore they end up robbing themselves of their self-confidence and the self-esteem that comes from making successful, progressive steps in their journey. In both cases, this is caused by a misunderstanding of the standard and where they are relative to that, whether it's above or below. It's a misfire of comparison, right? They are not comparing themselves to the right thing at the right time, and therefore they are missing out on all the benefits that the skill of comparison can provide. And all of this can be remedied by spending significant time understanding your industry and your craft. Finding out who the greats of the past were and exactly what made them great. Understanding who are the greats of right now, of the modern era, and what makes them great. Understanding how are past and present different. How do they think? How do they live? What is their history, right? How do they build a sense of style? How do they build a sense of good taste? And then take a real good deep look at yourself and understand the delta, right? What techniques do they use that you aren't? What skill set do they have that you don't, right? How do they achieve this look where you're doing this look? How do you break things down, etc., etc., right? Spend significant time understanding where you are versus where the standard is with as much accuracy as possible. That's what it's all about. The art of comparison is about the skill of being accurate with what you're comparing, so that you know what to do next and how to feel about it, so that you can keep learning or celebrate your successes or reevaluate yourself or even be real with yourself. This is a sense that I can't explicitly teach you as far as I know, but it is something that I can at the very least illuminate as an idea to you, so I can set you down a path that I think is most certainly worth any creative's time and worth a significant time when you're on that particular journey. All right. If you have any questions, of course, leave them down in the comments below and I'll try my best to get to them. For now, that's it for this video. I'll see you in the next one. But until then, get out there and make something that matters. Peace.